Shasta, do you want to start by welcoming us?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the April TECC-X Travel, Energy, and Climate Collaborative Exchange. And we have a couple of great breakouts for you today to choose from. But before we get to that, and you decide where you want to spend most of your time, we want to talk a little bit about some of our featured opportunities Josh, I think you're the one who's going to do that for us.
Yeah, I think before we do our kind of intros, so Josh Simmons, co-director of the Tribal Energy and Climate Collaborative. Shasta?
All right, introductions. I just assume by now everybody knows who we are. I'm Shasta Gone. I'm the executive director of the Paula Environmental Department for the Paula Band of Mission Indians and also TECC co-director.
And also overseeing tribal climate health
Tribal
project.
Climate Health Project, yes.
Yeah, as a reminder, the Tribal Energy and Climate Collaborative has three programs that are serving primarily the 26 member tribes of the Southern California Tribal Chairman Association. We have statewide programming such as the TECC-X meetings that are intended to bring capacity building, technical assistance, and opportunities to tribes statewide. And so please be on the lookout for any of our programming that goes beyond just those member tribes, or if you're a member tribe, knowing that you have deeper services available. And Chesta, you want to do the brief summary of Tribal Climate Health Project?
Yes, so the Tribal Climate Health Project has been around for actually going on 10 years now, and we provide services to tribes to assist them with developing a health-focused tribal climate adaptation plan and vulnerability assessment, and just helping people integrate the aspects of climate change that have an immediate effect on cultural, social, and physical health. So both from a medical standpoint in terms of how climate change is affecting us as just as organisms, and also really importantly how it affects culture and our social health. So we're going to be talking a little bit about one of those in the breakout about extreme heat. So glad you're here to be a part of it.
Great. Yeah, and our breakout for TECX today is going to be focused on the DOE Unleashing Tribal Energy grant opportunity, as well as the FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities grant opportunities. So this is a new slide to me. I guess, have an offering, a meeting archive now of all of our meetings. They weren't previously hosted before on our websites. So Serena, is that live now?
Yes, and I'll throw it in the chat for everyone.
Okay.
And also, if folks could introduce themselves in the chat, that would be great. Just your name and your tribe or organization that you represent or work for.
And so as a reminder, in addition to the monthly TECX meetings, we also have our monthly-ish, although we skipped this month, Advancing Tribes' Interest at the California Public Utilities Commission. So you can go to the meetings archive to go and see the past trainings we've done with respect to engaging in the CPUC proceedings. Okay, so I am going to rattle off the highlights among the opportunities that are available right now. So this includes grants, incentives, events, and then if there are any other ones that you're aware of that you're not seeing that you think everybody here should be aware of, then please put them in the chat. So the first one is the California Wildlife Conservation Board funding that's recently reopened. It looks like there's 7 to 8 different opportunities available. So for those that are interested in wildlife conservation, habitats, species related projects, you should check these out. The extreme heat, the LCI's Extreme Heat and Community Resilience Funding Round 2 is going to open this summer. Modeling and monitoring air quality co-benefits of energy interventions closes, I guess, Thursday, so you better get on it if you want this funding. You got another one that you better race to get to is the next generation geothermal field tests and resource characterization confirmation, although I do think this got extended. into May. So you may want to double check that opportunity if you're interested in geothermal. But if you have not looked at that yet, maybe too short of a time frame. Affordable housing, sustainable communities, May 4th. So likely you're if you are interested in this, hopefully you're well on your way. So May 15th, there's the 2026 state fire capacity grants from California Fire Safe Council. CAL FIRE has its business and workforce development grants due on May 20th for up to $3 million. The California Department of Housing and Community Development has loans and grants for awards of $2 million to $8 million for affordable housing projects. And there is the Power Your Drive for Fleets for SDG&E. We're going to cover the Unleashing Tribal Energy Development grants today, so we'll go into this in much more detail along with BRIC. Water Financing Exchange Pre-Development Funding for water and environmental related projects of forgivable loans up to $250,000. And then San Diego Clean Cars for All incentives. So this is being offered through San Diego County Air Pollution Control District, and if we identify other air districts offering this, we will share more about that. Okay, so upcoming funding, I'll just kind of highlight the Strategic Growth Council is going to be voting on the guidelines for the community resilience centers and tribal capacity building program and Transformative Climate Communities grant programs tomorrow. So the expectation is that the guidelines will be approved and that they will issue funding opportunity announcements, I think sometime in May or in summer, and then the actual funding application period will start in the summer. But you can go watch the council meeting for more information on that tomorrow. A CNRA has a tribal workforce, building tribal workforce for tribal stewardship events, virtual events on Thursday. The ACT Expo for those interested in fleet technology in Vegas. That's going to be next week. CARB has their Clean Transportation Equity Incentives Symposium. We're sending somebody there next week, but it's also available virtually. The Alliance for Tribal Clean Energies Tribal Energy Evolution Summit is going to be happening May 11th through 14th, and I will be there. Hopefully I'll see you there. And hopefully I'll also see you at the 2026 California Tribal Leaders Energy and Safety Summit at Viejas at the end of the month. And then the second annual Native American GIS Summit is going to be from May 21st to 22nd, University of Redlands. There is the Plastic Pollution Mitigation Fund Tribal Roundtable session being hosted at Big Valley on May 26th, the 17th Annual SEEK Forum in LA in June. And then National Indian Health Board will be hosting the 2026 National Tribal Health Conference in August. And then I think this is it. The Senate Bill 54, we talked about the Plastic Pollution Mitigation Fund event coming up. There's a survey with a deadline of June 26th on helping inform this fairly large fund. And I encourage you to share input on this to identify tribal priorities for projects that this can be used to mitigate plastic pollution impacts on tribal communities. Okay, so we're going to start adding this as a standing slide to these events as well. TECC is the lead engagement partner on behalf of Southern California Regional Energy Network as well as San Diego Regional Energy Network. And enrollment is open with SoCalRen. It is going to be open very soon with San Diego Ren, and there are opportunities for tribes to identify and get funding and incentives for energy efficiency measures and to receive support and technical assistance and even grant rating support for broader energy resiliency and energy sovereignty planning. So if you're interested, if you are served by either Southern California Edison, SoCal Gas, or San Diego Gas and Electric, please email coordinator@socaltech.org if you want to learn more about that programming. Okay, all right, so today, instead of somebody staying in the main room, we're going to force all of you to break out. We're going to see what happens with this experiment. And so if you're not paying attention, you may just be sitting in the room with Serena, kind of watching nothing. So you're going to be prompted to break out into either the tech room to focus on the grant writing tools and guidance for the DOE and FEMA grant funding opportunities, or you can select the Tribal Climate Health Project room to focus on tribal climate resilience in a changing world, focusing on climate adaptation through extreme heat planning part 1. Okay, we'll give it one more minute or so for people to trickle in. All right, so this is our grand writing room. We're going to focus on tools and guidance for the recent DOE and FEMA grant funding opportunities that were released. So first of all, want to share a disclaimer anytime we're providing grant writing assistance. I think in summary, read this, but I think it's important for you to review the opportunity carefully, directly. Don't fully rely upon any information here. Everybody's going to have a unique project, and information does evolve over time, and we're it's still a little bit early in the process too. So always complete your diligence in these opportunities. So I've already introduced myself. I'm joined by Alyssa. Alyssa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alyssa Danagelis. I'm on the technical assistance team, and I'm also a consultant for Prosper Sustainably, specializing in funding opportunity research and grant writing. Nice to welcome you all. Hi.
Thanks, Alyssa. So I'm going to focus more on the DOE opportunity. Alyssa is actually going to focus more on the FEMA opportunity, but Alyssa did the funding opportunity review and grant writing plans for both. So she may be called upon for even the DOE opportunity. So we really want to focus on, I think for us, anytime we look at an opportunity, we start with these two tools. First of all, the funding opportunity review. In this case, it's I think their notice of funding opportunities are NOFO. So that is a Word document that we've set up that's intended to be easy to navigate. Really, the intention is to organize and consolidate the solicitation information and somewhat streamline it to the most critical information, and have it in one central place. It's intended to be more of a static document, although there's some opportunity, some level of planning here. And the main purpose of this is, I guess, twofold. Primarily in doing the opportunity review, it forming the decision of whether to apply. So you spend an hour or two or so going through the opportunity review process, really wrapping your head around it and seeing if it's a good fit. Because there's nothing worse than spending time working on a grant application that's just not a good fit, because you waste a lot of time and effort, and your likelihood of success is that much lower. So that's really the primary purpose of this. The second is to really just, the process itself ensures that you get familiar with the opportunity, that you actually get eyes on all the key elements, because some of these opportunities are extremely long. Sometimes they're in scattered places, and it's really important to go out and extract all the important requirements and elements of it, and ensure that you understand it and you're ready, you're prepared for this undertaking. So that pairs well with our grant writing plan. So we have a dynamic spreadsheet that we use. We share it among our teammates when we're doing grant writing projects. So it's intended to take it's basically your roadmap. It's the project management plan for preparing the grant application, and it extracts the key elements. What are all the deliverables you need to prepare, and allows you to understand them, check them off, assign them, understand what page they're on, what the file requirements are, so on and so forth. So it'll have all the application components, and it's intended to be your kind of going back to it on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, or getting closer to the deadline to keep track, monitor progress, and keep everybody moving forward in the right direction. Okay, so I'm going to I think we'll probably spend a bit more time on the DOE opportunities. The DOE Unleashing Tribal Energy Development was released about a month or two ago. So $50 million, it's great to see some money flowing again from DOE. We had this opportunity, I think, was paused for about 2 years. So tribes are eligible, as well as intertribal organizations, tribal energy development organizations. I think there's only one official BIA-approved TETO, and tribal colleges and universities. The deadline's July 24th, 2026. So they actually gave a fair bit of time in advance. I think it was almost four months or so. So there's 3 topic areas, and I have to say, like, this is probably the broadest of all of the DOE opportunities. So I just want to share some context too. I've worked with tribes on this particular opportunity the past and helped them secure grants the past 7 rounds of this. So fairly familiar with this opportunity. My background is, in that seven solicitations running. This was the San Pasqual facility back here was the first of those 7 back in, I think we applied in 2018 or 2019, and subsequently got an award for one tribe or another in all 7 solicitation cycles since then. So very familiar with this particular opportunity. And this is as broad as I've ever seen it. So it kind of includes all of what you may have seen under the Office of Energy offering before. So topic area 1 is for your deployment projects. So this is the infrastructure projects. I'll go into more details in a moment, but these deployment projects are going to be awarded up to $7.5 million, which I think is as high as I've ever seen it for single awards, with a minimum cost share of 10%. Topic area number 2 is going to be for your community scale, like it's pre-development grants. So pre-development projects, so planning, assessments, feasibility studies, other pre-development activities can include environmental. In this case, these community scale projects can be up to $1.5 million. There's no cost share required. And then beyond the community scale into the large scale projects, transmission level projects, utility scale projects that are kind of the same thing for pre-development activities. The awards are up to $2.5 million with no cost share required. So I'm going to pull these up in a moment to share some of the details, but the examples that were cited in the solicitation under topic area number 1, energy efficiency from mechanical upgrades for tribal government campus, which would be for facilities, building a cogen facility, combined heat and power plants for tribal community or facility, upgrading outdated residential electrical panels. That to me is a bit of a new thing that they're now willing to fund, more of a focus on infrastructure as opposed to generation or storage assets, but also continuing to deploy energy generation, continuing to fund energy generation and energy storage project deployments. So the examples of topic area number 2, which I have to say, I feel like it's tribal community energy planning, assessment, feasibility study, and capacity building. So I was surprised by the capacity building activities that are included here, but site-specific energy resource assessments, load assessments for a particular facility, energy audits or industrial energy assessments, for interconnection and transmission evaluation for projects, economic and financial analyses, training and other professional development planning, even funding tribal staff and developing a tribal energy office was mentioned. And then topic area 3, there's a big emphasis in this administration on data centers. So data center development planning activities are covered, critical mineral extraction, and then large-scale geothermal energy generation feasibility studies. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through these things at a somewhat high level, and then I'm going to go back to the funding opportunity announcement and then the grant writing plan. So some kind of notable things that were popped out that we've not seen in prior solicitations was mention of AI. The applicants consent to the Department of Energy using AI in reviewing the proposals. So, if you're averse to AI like Shasta is, then that may give you a bit of pause. But it was interesting that they actually asked applicants to summarize their use of AI in preparing the application. That's a little bit a big brother of them. So it's up to you how much you want to share or how much you use AI or not. One, I think significant requirement, or at least in terms of what was done in the past. So usually, previously, you submitted resumes to the key personnel. They're now requiring bio sketches similar to other agencies. So I had to prepare one for a National Science Foundation application before. It can be, it's going to take more time and effort for you to, you're going to basically have to take your resume and put it into a certain format. You're going to have a login.gov. So it is maybe a bit of a barrier for some. A good requirement or change is that they're no longer, so tribes applying need to provide a tribal council resolution, but a letter could be provided instead, so long as they're a clear documented authority that letter from that authorized official would be equivalent to a tribal council resolution. And then for not a tribal application, so like an intertribal organization or tribal college or university, they only require a declaration of commitment and cost sharing in the form of a letter from an authorized official. Let's see. So the notable requirements, Alyssa, in terms of technical volume, work plans, site resources, maps, and graphic. These are just kind of normal.
Yeah, they're pretty standard. One thing, Josh, really quickly, I think there is that eligibility document that is required in this one too, which we ran into in previously. So just want to call that out. Just make sure you check out the eligibility file.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll pull this up and go into the weeds on these things. So in terms of the technical criteria review, it's pretty standard, the overall scoring on needs, goals, and objectives, how well you articulate them, the viability, impact, and outcomes of the project, roles, responsibility, and capabilities, and commitment. So they're going to evaluate your team members, and so you have to have your impressive bio sketches, and then surprisingly only 10% of the work plan, but I think it's more about kind of how well organized it is and logical it is. I think they have a prescribed format for these. So before we kind of get into the weeds on this, one notable thing that jumped out to me was the complete lack of the words solar, wind, renewable energy, clean energy, and unless you've been hiding in a cave or living under a rock, you are aware that the current administration has not been particularly friendly to clean energy and renewable energy technologies. I think I just read an article yesterday that 2 offshore wind developers got paid to stop proceeding by the federal government to stop proceeding with a project, like significant, I think one of them received $250 million to stop pursuing their wind project. So this question is asked in the FAQs, and I advised everybody to go look at the frequently asked questions. They're not frequently asked questions, they're just actually questions that are being submitted, and the question period, I believe, is open, will continue to be open. But question 48 was, are tribally designated housing entities eligible to apply for solar installation projects? And then it kind of points you to question number 20. I think there's another one about the eligibility of solar projects as well earlier on. But question 20, are there any specific technologies or energy systems that would not be eligible for funding on this NOFO, i.e. wind or solar, which are not mentioned at all? So the answer is no, there are no specific ineligible technologies or energy systems under this FOA. Please note that to be eligible under topic area 1, applicants must use commercially proven and warranty technology. See section E for applications specifically not of interest. So basically they're saying in this response that you could propose solar and wind, and they, they're not, it's not ineligible. However, just, be mindful. I don't know. All of the projects I've applied for before have either been solar plus storage microgrids or solar projects. I don't feel as confident in submitting those projects now than I would in the past. But who knows? I mean, I know that the staff on the ground are very supportive of these projects still. I don't know how much they're involved in evaluating and selecting these projects, but just keep that in mind. Realize that there is a risk there about proposing those technologies. There's a huge emphasis on fossil technologies, on biomass, geothermal, even nuclear, planning for nuclear projects. but devoid of clean energy technology. So the notice of funding opportunity is broken up into two parts. So I think, I don't know, previously it was like 100 pages. They broke it into two 50-page sections. Maybe they figured it'd be less daunting that way, but it really seems like it's just as long as it always is. And then there's a whole host of application forms and templates. And then please do review the funding, the FAQs that I think are being updated daily. All right, so I'm going to pull up the funding opportunity announcement. So some of this is intended to focus on this specific funding opportunity. And some of it's intended to just kind of provide best practices for, applying for any grant. So we had this template. We've shared it in the past. We'll share this funding opportunity review for this opportunity, as well as the blank template for you to use for any funding opportunity. Or we systematically go through and we extract out the key information. So, title, the funder, the links, the different documents. We certainly want to hone in on the application deadline. So we use headers in this document so you can quickly navigate to the key elements. And we subheaders as things get a bit more granular. So we have until end of July, so still plenty of time to go out for this opportunity. $50 million. It's always good, always important to know how much money is available, and then the kind of minimums and maximums. There's no minimum among any of these. The only one with a cost share is going to be that topic area number 1. There is no cost share reduction like there have been in past for these types of opportunities. So there's different types of cost share allowed. The projects themselves can be from up to 48 months. I again, don't rely upon this. I have experience in getting no cost extensions on these. Usually it kind of depends upon the fiscal cliff of the funding opportunity itself, but plan for a maximum of 48-month projects, and always try to give yourself a buffer. They're anticipating that the project's going to start in February of 2027. I already mentioned the eligible organizations. We put these in here just to be sure, and then the definitions of those eligible organizations. We like to kind of put in here the purpose and make sure we have eyes on it to kind of guide what they're seeking to fund. And then the eligible grant project activities. So this is where you're going to want to spend a lot of your time, is focusing on what is eligible under each topic area and what you may want to do. So topic area 1, the things that jumped out to me under topic area 1 were really I wasn't surprised by the deployment. That's standard. I think, they have funded energy efficiency in the past. It was more of the kind of equipment to strengthen energy infrastructure. And things, projects that are expanding electricity access through upgrade or addition of energy infrastructure, to me, that I think are fairly unique here and are very much needed. So the fact that they talked about just upgrading electrical panels for homes, but if you are trying to build out distribution infrastructure, undergrounding, that those seem like they would be eligible types of projects here. So a lot broader in the past. One thing to note on this, and this is more recently, I think probably 2 or 3 rounds ago, they started requiring the projects be closer to being shovel ready, that the project itself be based on a completed design engineering, and they say except final design and engineering. In the FAQs, somebody asked about this and said, typical projects include 30%, 60%, 90% design. They responded that they are expecting projects to be closer to 90%, which is pretty far along. Just realize that caveat's there. I've had successful applications with less than 90%, so it needs to appear to be further, pretty far along. Like and there tends to be some flexibility on the back end to make changes, but just know going in, you need to go in what appears to be a final design engineering that would be viewed as some to be 90%. So they're not expecting construction documents, which so you can get funding to turn those final designs into construction documents as part of your application. We'll get into some requirements here pretty soon. Was there a question? Oh, it's not. Okay. So, we shared some of the examples before. I think the notable one for me, again, was that infrastructure. Topic area number 2, we provided examples. You could start with strategic energy planning or energy resilience planning. DOE's kind of used to require energy options analyses before pursuing the deployment projects. They're funding those here. Feasibility studies, conducting audits. I think the tribal energy capacity building to me was pretty interesting. So developing an energy organization or office, establishing tribal energy policy regulations or codes, obtaining skills and training related to energy use, development, or management. Those I think are great options for tribes that are trying to build up capacity. What also jumped out to me in scrolling down here was under this tribal energy capacity, forming a tribal utility authority, a tribal energy development organization, an energy services company. So, doing this studies and planning for those types of activities are eligible for an individual tribe or intertribal energy consortium. So I think it's, again, spend your time on these topic areas and, consider where you fit, how far along your project is. If, you don't feel like your project is far along enough in design or engineering, then you may, not be in topic area 1 and maybe want to be considering topic area 2 or 3. Okay. Always check the ineligible expenditures on those. And then really, I think this is where the rubber hits the road, the required proposal application components. So DOE, if you've never done one before, they can be a lift. So know that going into it. You need to have your kind of standard registrations, so make sure you follow those. You'll need to, kind of be in the portal itself. The standard things like SF424 need to be submitted. Really, the meatier ones are going to be your technical volume. So on this, it's limited to 15 pages. What I like about this one that I haven't seen in the past is that it's actually they have a pretty detailed template for the technical volume this time. I've not seen that in the past. So usually when you're preparing an application, we advise, if you are pursuing it, one of the first things you can do, or an earlier step, is develop an outline of your proposal narrative, and then insert the information of like all the sections that are requiring, and pull the description of what is required along with the criteria relevant to each section, and put in that document as a guide. And DOE has essentially done that for you here in their template. So that's one less step you have to do. I think the work plan template, which needs to be 5 pages or less, also is a standard template. They require a lot in 5 pages, so you're actually like your activities are going to need to be at a fairly higher level than you may be used to providing in terms of like detailing out the project plan itself, especially on a development plan where you're doing procurement, you're doing the final design engineering, and then moving into construction and commissioning and initial operations and maintenance. In your measurement and verification period. So you don't have much room to detail those. So you keep those at a fairly high level. We talked about the bio sketches being different than now, you can't just have a resume now. Your site and resources map. So what we've done in the past on these for the solar projects is gone to, DOE own websites or NREL websites to pull the solar resources maps. But if you're considering geothermal, basically they want to see documentation that if the resources are available, or whatever technology you're going to be deploying. It may not be as relevant for say diesel engines or natural gas, but you may need to demonstrate that's available there. A design engineering file, if that's relevant to your particular project, that's going to have those drawings, the hardware specifications. We typically, at minimum, would have a single line diagram if it's a deployment project, a single line diagram, an engineering design site plan, we would pull the spec sheets and warranties for all major equipment we're going to be using. And then if you have the interconnection studies and interconnection agreements available, including those as well. Your economics file is going to be your cash flow analysis. So your 10 to 20, 25-year cash flow analysis that must have internal rate of return and net present value that shows your payback period calculations. And then DOE standard budget justification work, which is going to break it down into your federal categories. If you have a subrecipient one, and then Melissa, you were talking about this, the eligibility statements and evidence file.
Yes, definitely pay close attention to this part, because I know it took a little bit of extra time in the past to just pull together any kind of statement or documentation that was required here. And Josh, for the Q&A, we've got a question from Shoshone about how a consortium applies for this opportunity. So I just wanted to raise that for when we get to the Q&A part.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's, yeah. And I can actually address, well, I guess I'll hold off. Okay, so well, one way is that the consortium itself, if it's a 501c3 or whatever type of organization it is, actually doesn't have to have a resolution. Instead, it would have, I mean, it could have a resolution if that's how the body operates, but there's a declaration of commitment from an authorized NAOR, an authorized organizational representative on that. And then that letter also, if there's going to be cost share, if it's for a deployment project, needs to commit to the cost share as well.
Josh, I had a question in there. Maybe you could answer it. For the cost share, if a cost share isn't required for the topic area, do you still need to submit this the documentation saying we're not doing a cost share? Because it was a little bit confusing in the guidance.
That is a good question. I have not looked closely at that, so I'll have to pull it up. Okay, so there's a few more different files here that, but basically it's like what we do is we take these, if it looks like it's a suitable opportunity or you have a good sense from the beginning that you want to go for it, we then turn this into a grant writing plan. So the grant writing plan in this case, usually would only have one particular TA on here is what did T stand for? Topic area. Okay, so topic area 1, topic area 2, topic area 3. So in this case, there were different components for each topic area. And so Alyssa was, asking if, I know in the past with DOE grants, I believe if you were submitting it and it wasn't required, you had to submit a document saying that this is not required. And there was actually in the NOFO itself, there was a good chart that showed
Right.
what was required for each.
Yes. There was a little bit of
because it's
disconnect.
not required. Maybe I'm the wrong one. Maybe it's this one.
Yeah, I did add it to the grant writing plan or the review. It does have that chart.
That table. Okay.
That table.
At the top.
It's in the application components part towards the top. Yeah. It's around the list. I'm so sorry. Application details. It's under this, I think.
Application components list.
And then underneath, it's on this next page. There we go. Yeah. So, the cost sharing file, it just says if applicable, but then the language indicates with the actual description in the NOFO.
This would be required no matter what, because the commitment, like the declaration of commitment, is I think just the general commitment to the project and proceeding with the project no matter what. And
okay.
The language regarding on cost sharing there.
Got it. Okay.
Cost sharing.
Okay. Thank Thanks for clarifying, Josh. And then everybody, I will just upload this file for you. And again, we will make these available. We'll distribute them to TECC-X participants this week, and they'll also make them available.
Yeah, so I realize I'm now burning through most of the time, and you just have to cover brick in about 10 minutes. So basically we put all these into this grant writing plan, and this allows you to kind of track them and filter them. We like to put the description in here of what it covers. What is the file format for the final submission? What page was it on in the FOA? And then the file name that needs to be in for the submission itself. And then you actually have your control number, everything. So, hopefully this will help you if you're considering this opportunity, have something to start with to get this up off the ground. But in terms of a consortium, I think it's you apply as the consortium itself, whatever type of entity it is. You complete the same documentation. I think the main difference is going to be, instead of a tribal council resolution, you're going to have that declaration of commitment instead. But I think most of everything else is going to be fairly this, is going to be just about the same.
Josh, real quick, just to emphasize, if you see at the bottom, there are different color-coded tabs for topic areas. So just to re-emphasize that, so that you can use each one, and they're customized for the requirements for that topic area.
Yeah, and so the grant writing plan too, it's this allows you to focus on the components itself. We have a little field for just tracking action items as you're working with your team. We also have we put in the criteria that you can evaluate. You can do some self-scoring. The people scoring this thing are people just like us that are evaluating this and considering whether or not it meets this or not. So this can be a helpful process to go through to identify where you could strengthen your application, where some of your weaknesses and gaps might be. So we have a bunch of information here that may or may not be helpful to use. Like we mostly focused on the grant writing plan. There's even a lot of fields in here where you could assign responsibilities and due dates and all that stuff as well. We don't necessarily use all aspects of these plans all the time. It's like use it in a way that's useful to you to keep yourself and your team on track. And this is a tool that you can use among all the stakeholders and team members working on this. Okay, all right. So listen, if there aren't any other questions, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay.
Do you want me to pull up the slides, or do you?
Yeah, if you could just pull up the slides, that would be great. And so we don't have a lot of time on this one, and but I just wanted to hit some main points about it to start thinking about as you're weighing whether or not to pursue this opportunity, or if you're already decided that you want to go after it. Some elements just to keep in mind for this go around. So I will pop the opportunity website into the chat. Here we go. And this is this is the fiscal year 2024 and 2025 building resilient infrastructure and communities opportunity. And I think so. We can go to the next slide. So quick overview, $1 billion total. There's a $50 million tribal set aside, also a $25 million tribal building code plus ups subtotal. Be aware there's a 15% cap on the total available funding per applicant of those amounts, and the cap includes all the funding categories. So I just highlighted a couple that are particularly relevant here, but there are several funding categories, including a national competition. Required cost share is 75% federal, 25% non-federal. There's an adjustment for certain low-income communities, just to be aware of that. And this is going to be extremely competitive. That's my understanding from a the Region 9, FEMA Region 9 tribal BRIC webinar, which was last week. Some folks might have gone to that. They really emphasize this. So this time there's a focus on infrastructure projects. So well-developed, well-advanced, really ready to go infrastructure projects are going to score higher in this competition. There's funding for building code adoption and enforcement, and that's that plus up. Those fall under there. In the past, there was funding for hazard mitigation plan development. That is not part of BRIC this go around, which is really annoying. But just wanted to call that out. Resources for this opportunity may be particularly limited because FEMA is affected by the partial government shutdown. However, this being said, the Region 9 team has been pretty responsive to us with our questions about the application process. Yeah, so basically, you had to have a major disaster declaration. This is not hard to have. And really want to emphasize that you must have a FEMA approved tribal hazard mitigation plan to apply for this. That is a requirement. Next slide, Josh. Something that was a bit complicated with FEMA that folks who are already familiar with FEMA funding may know, but there's the applicant and then sub-applicants. And so there's going to be the tribal agency is the designated entity within a federally recognized tribal nation that submits the application to FEMA. Now, within that, there's your tribe will select an agency or department that will be the official applicant. It's A, capital A, applicant. And then within that, other departments will be the sub-applicants or entities will be the sub-applicants. So it's a bit confusing, but there's going to be one main applicant from the tribe that has all the different projects that you're applying for as sub-applicants, and it all goes together, and you can apply for different projects from different departments. Next slide, Josh. So these are just some examples of the funded activities in this go around. And there's really an emphasis on infrastructure and construction. Just wanted to highlight that. There's also building code adoption and enforcement activities. Josh, next one. One thing that was highlighted that the Region 9 folks highlighted was the 36-month performance period starts with the first award. So if your tribe has multiple departments with different projects that you're submitting for FEMA BRIC, the first award, if there's a really low, pretty it's whatever gets first is that starts the 36-month clock. So just be aware of that if you've got projects with different timelines, because that could ripple through a construction project, and there aren't going to be any extensions. So I just really wanted to highlight that, which that point that came out of the webinar that they presented. So just be really aware of that 36-month performance period when planning an application. And then I'm going to put the opportunity review and the grant writing plan in the chat, and we'll also distribute them. I really want to just the hugest caveat with this. the organization for this review and the grant writing plan template, take it all with a huge grain of salt, because all of the specific instructions are inside the FEMA Go application system. And so follow that and follow those instructions over anything that we send you, because that we were riding a little bit blind with the review and the grant writing plan without having access to an actually starting an application or starting a sub application, because once that ball gets rolling in the system, there's certain elements that you need to stay on top of. So just really be aware that there may be some information in these resources for BRIC that we share with you that are no longer relevant or only applied to an old BRIC opportunity. So just be very careful with these. But again, as Josh showed, this is the review, and it's organized by headers, and then the grant writing plan is also you can go back to that. This is so this is as much as I could pull about what you're going to need to pull together for an application, and examples in the attachments for each section of what types of documentation you might need to attach and upload into FEMA Go. Okay.
Great. Well, we're being called back into the room. I guess we'll have to see if there's any Q&A in there.
I'll put the grant writing plans in the main chat shortly.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa. All right, so you guys
Sure.
back in the room.
Okay.
LASIK, those infamous water pills, not only will they make you use the facilities quite often, but it can also exacerbate your dehydration. Medications will often also cause you to have a sun sensitivity. So being out in the sun for even small periods can potentially burn your skin. You also can potentially become overheated much more quickly than the other person if you have medications or ongoing chronic health issues. And then something we don't think of very often, but stress. This is particularly notable among individuals who are diabetics, that just the stress, typically they're not people who are running 5Ks or 10Ks, much less a 1K. And so mobility is an issue. Having to go in and out of a car. Typically diabetics have to have their go and get their treatment. Now I lost my train of thought of what it's called. But when they're having to go and get their treatment at a facility, it's usually 3 times a week that they actually have to go and why can't I think of the name of that
Dialysis.
word? Dialysis, yes. And one of the things that HOOPA, my tribe in Northern California, has done is instead of having dialysis patients travel a round trip of over 120 miles each, 3 times a week, they're building their own dialysis center so that patients don't have to leave and have less exposure to stress. Also, when we think about stress, we also have to think within our tribal communities as grandparents who are caring for their grandchildren as full-time caregivers. So, as grandparents, and I'm a grandparent, our job is to be grandparents and not be the parent, because that's for the younger people. But oftentimes within our communities, we have a higher rate of the population where the grandparents are often raising their grandchildren. And just that stress in and of itself can be an issue. Next slide, please. So how do we respond to these things? Of course, you need to make sure that your health personnel understands the impacts and educates the patients. And one of the places that's really doing some phenomenal outreach, even within the tribal communities, is, and you're going to love this, SCORCH. SCORCH stands for, I wrote this down, Southwest Center on Resilience for Climate Change and Health. They have tools for healthcare workers and training for healthcare workers to help them understand that the heat impacts begin at 85 degrees, that your medications can start breaking down. And I should have put this on the slide, but I didn't. The optimal temperature for storage of your medications is between 59 and 77 degrees. So if you have a place, and again, we're notorious for doing this, putting my mother used to like to put her medications on her windowsill in the kitchen. And typically that is a east facing, rising with the sun's right on it all day. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that your medications are stored. But we also need to make sure that our health personnel understand how their patients are storing their medication and using the medication and carrying the medication with them. So we definitely need to make sure that they are doing that. And if you just want some easy training modules, I would go to the SCORCH website. And I love that in SCORCH.
That's great.
Also, we need to engage your emergency services, because our emergency personnel need to know how to respond to somebody who might be in a situation of being overheated. And they need to work side by side with our health professionals as well, so that everybody's on the same page in terms of what the impacts of heat are, both to the patient, those with chronic diseases, and with medication use. I'm sorry, what? Oh.
Go ahead, Jill.
And then some tribes have even informed an internal task force made up of community members, emergency services, and health professionals. And HOOPA has done that, and they regularly get together to talk about how they're going to respond and educate the community on temperatures above 85 degrees. And then create a care team to provide one-on-one checks. You need to have, some communities in Arizona have something called a care buddy. And the care buddy is just a family member or someone who will check on those individuals with chronic health conditions to make sure that they're doing well in extreme heat situations. And a reason for that is when you look at your population within your community, you need to know several things. One, what kind of home are they living in? How old is the home? Is the home a trailer? What kind of cooling system does the home have? On many HUD homes in general, throughout the Southwest and even the Pacific Northwest, and this is just my windshield observation, we all seem to have the same house, which on Paula, that your HUD houses look the same as the ones that are in HOOPA.
Yep.
And typically they are trying to cool their house with swamp coolers, and we all know those are not efficient. Additionally, you could do something like what the Navajo did. They declared it they did a declaration of disaster. So they did a disaster declaration so they could help bring FEMA money into providing cooling stations and even cooling. I think they did some portable air conditioners with solar panels for energy. And so that's another way to fund your response to dealing with these increased days of heat. And next slide. That's it. I guess I was done.
Yeah. Thank you, Jill.
Short and sweet, 5 minutes.
Yeah, perfect. Really appreciate it. And there's your finger has been over your camera, I think, most of the time.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
That's all right. We're looking at your slides. So yeah, this is great. Colin, I'm going to call on you next. Go for it.
Okay, thanks, Shasta. Thank you all for giving me some time today. I'm really excited to share about our upcoming grant opportunity. You can go to my next slide here. Tina's presentation was such a great precursor to the types of funding that we can provide in this upcoming round of funding, so I'm excited to share more about it. Go ahead, next slide. So before I get into the upcoming round of funding, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on our grant program and then wrap up with, actually, I think we're going to hold questions and answers until after all of the presentations. So we'll have a handful of slides to skip through at the end there too. So we can go to the next one. So our shop in the governor's office is broken into two different sections. We have the policy side, which focuses on California's Extreme Heat Action Plan. They're working on that in partnership with the California Natural Resources Agency, and Cal Heat Score, which is an innovative heat warning system that they're working on with the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. But today's presentation will focus primarily on our funding and our upcoming round of funding, which is round 2. Next slide, please. So our first round of funding awarded $32 million across 45 grants in 23 different counties. And so those counties are highlighted here in orange. That funding provided funding for both planning and infrastructure, and that's going to be slightly different than this upcoming round of funding. So for round 2, we can go to the next slide. We have $27 million, $27.5 million funded through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and Proposition 4, which both require that the solutions that are being funded need to be at least partially infrastructure development. And so we'll go over what that means in a little bit, and I'll provide some examples from round 1 to make it a little more clear. And we expect about 20 grants for the next round. Next slide, please. So all of our projects are going to lean on these 4 key program values. As you consider applying and as you write your applications, these program values are going to be key to do the storytelling to help us understand how your project speaks to these different values. So harm reduction, we heard a lot from Tina about how heat can cause harm, and we want to know how your infrastructure investment can reduce the heat on the most heat impacts on the most vulnerable populations. Partnerships are also generally required, and there's a key caveat here, but partnerships are required because we recognize that effective solutions require both community and institutional capacity. The caveat is that tribal governments do not need to have a partner for their applications. And so around this value, questions will surround collaboration internally if a partner is not included on the application. Belonging is our third program value, and belonging ensures that infrastructure is embedded into the community. And it can be either prior to infrastructure development, such as community-informed design processes and community engagement, or it can happen after the infrastructure through some creative processes and incorporating arts or culturally relevant elements to the project and the infrastructure itself. And finally, lasting community benefits are that this infrastructure development should fit into a larger, broader vision about how you're reducing extreme heat on your community. We can go ahead to the next slide. These infrastructure investments will be broken into 2 different types. And the first is early infrastructure. Early infrastructure allow for infrastructure planning and development, and they do require a pilot project or demonstration project. And advanced infrastructure, the other grant type, will be primarily the infrastructure investment. So a much larger investment, and up to 70% of the investment must go to that infrastructure. The key element here is that the building solution must be completed within the grant time frame. Next slide, please. So as you think about what type of grant you would like to apply for, here are the different award amounts, and that might help you scale your project to understand if you want to apply for an early or an advanced project. So early projects are 30 months, and they range from $600,000 to $1 million. And advanced projects are 48 months, and they range from $2.5 to $4 million. You can see the infrastructure minimums here. And again, as I mentioned about partnerships, tribal governments do not need to have a partnership, so that minimum would be removed. And the belonging element must be included with a 5% minimum, with a key caveat that all of these numbers are subject to change apart from the award amounts. Next slide, please. So here's a list of possible eligible project types, but I won't read them one by one, but I want you to have this slide for your notes. And I'm gonna talk more in depth about some projects from round one that touch on eligible projects to give you an example of what could be funded through this project. Next slide, please. So in Lake County, North Coast Opportunities is partnering with Middletown Rancheria to install solar-powered mini-splits on vulnerable community members' homes. And so that is speaking clearly to the harm reduction element because they're targeting the most vulnerable community members with this investment. And they have a long-term vision for this project by incorporating a workforce development component. So they're training local community members to do these installations on these households. This is a really great solution because it allows vulnerable members of the community to stay in place during extreme heat events, and they don't have to try to figure out how to get to a cooling center or somewhere else. So we really like this solution. In Imperial County, the Torres Martinez Desert Cahuilla tribe is funding their recreation center to install a microgrid that's solar powered and battery backed up in case of an extreme heat power outage. And so that way it can stay cool for the community during those power outages. So that's a great built environment solution that we're seeing there. But another key element of this project that we really love is that they're also planting some shade trees around the Elder Housing Center. In addition to those two shade trees, the elders picked out some different native plants that have basket weaving properties, so they can increase their cultural relevancy there with the planting. And finally, the youth from the community is doing that planting, and so we get the elders sharing the basket weaving with the youth, and then that intergenerational knowledge share. So that's a great example of how this is creating some long-term benefit.
So Colin, I'm gonna just alert you, you've got about maybe a minute.
Okay, cool.
Left.
Thanks for the flag, Shasta.
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip this last one then, and just say that is a good project for an early project, and then we'll go on to how we're prioritizing tribes for this funding. So next slide, please. So again, there's no partnership requirement. All tribes as lead applicants will receive bonus points for being a tribal government as the lead. And for the technical assistance, apply during the pre-application window. The first pre-application window will allow for tribes to be prioritized for technical assistance. And finally, I'll wrap up with the timeline here. So we expect this funding to come out in the summer of very early summer with that first pre-application window. And so again, highly encourage you to apply during that first window to get some feedback on your application and be eligible for that pre-application technical assistance. And with that, the rest of my slides are about Q&A. So we'll move forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
now to Colleen to talk about an exciting upcoming release of a project we've been working hard on together. So Colleen, go for it.
All right. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, my name's Colleen Bodenreiter. I'm the Climate Change and Health Data Lead at the Public Health Alliance of Southern California, and I'm excited to talk to you about an extreme heat vulnerability assessment tool that we've been working on developing in conjunction with Paula Band of Mission Indians and Prosper Sustainably. And it's called the Exposures, Impacts, and Strategies Inventory, or EASY tool for extreme heat. And I'll just note that my presentation today is really just like a 5-minute teaser, and I'm excited to announce that we'll actually be launching the tool at the next TECC-X meeting in May. So if you're interested, if this tool interests you based on the teaser, feel free to attend the next TECC-X meeting, and we'll be doing like a full 45-minute training going more in depth into each of the steps I'll be talking about today. So next slide. All right, so what is the Easy for Extreme Heat tool? It's an online interactive guided tool that's designed to help tribes understand the impacts of extreme heat on their communities, places, and ecosystems. And the reason it's called Easy for Extreme Heat is because it uses the same framework as a tool that Prosper Sustainably has worked on and has developed called the Exposures, Impacts, and Inventory and Strategies Inventory tool. So the Easy for Extreme Heat tool guides tribes through a multi-step process. First, you select or define a tribal area. Then you look at projected extreme heat data for your tribal area and assess the risk of future extreme heat based on the data that you see. Third, you'll look at data on secondary exposures, which are exposures that are either related to or exacerbated by extreme heat. And you'll assess the risk that those secondary exposures pose to your tribal area. Then you'll identify and rank threatened community assets, which are resources and values that are important for your tribe to protect in the face of extreme heat. You'll then assess data on various extreme heat impacts to human health, taking into consideration how they impact those important community assets that you ranked earlier, as well as different factors that affect community sensitivity and resilience to extreme heat. And then finally, you'll see a community profile summary of all the data that you've selected so far and a list of adaptation strategies so that you can not only just understand your risk of exposure to extreme heat and the various impacts, but start to do some of that adaptation planning. And there's also an option to generate a report, which is essentially an extreme heat vulnerability assessment template that puts all of the data into a written vulnerability assessment report. All right, next slide. Actually, we can skip this just for time. And we can go to the next slide. All right. So I'm hoping that what I've talked through so far might seem, hopefully it doesn't sound too nebulous, but in order to make it kind of concrete, I wanted to do like a really quick preview of the tool so you can get a sense of how it works. So this first step, like I mentioned before, is for selecting a tribal area, and you can do this by selecting from a list of tribal areas in this drop down, or by selecting areas directly on the map. Next slide. And so after you select an area, this is where you can view data on your future extreme heat exposures for your tribal area. So in this case, you can see the average annual number of days above 90 degrees and above 100 degrees at various time points. So from historical to current to projected mid-century and projected end-century data. And based on the extreme heat data, we've a lot more than this. I had to cut some of it off. you'll rank the risk of extreme heat exposure in your tribal area using this kind of slider at the top. Next step. So the next step is to review data and rank secondary exposures. And these are, again, exposures that are triggered by extreme heat and may also result in impacts to communities like worsened air quality, water insecurity, and food insecurity. And so for each secondary exposure, we have a bunch of data that you can look at, and you can rank based on the data and the knowledge of your tribe. You can rank the risk of exposure for that secondary exposure to your community. Next slide. So this is the part where you can view and rank these community assets that are important for your community to protect in the face of extreme heat. And we recommend that you do this based on hopefully prior community engagement, so you have a good understanding of what your community cares about and what's important to your community. And then you'll use these assets in the next step to kind of inform the rankings of various impacts, extreme heat impacts that are related to kind of these assets. Next step. Sorry, I'm trying. I'm aware of time, so I'm trying to go a little bit quickly. And again, we'll have a more in-depth training if you're interested at the next TECC-X meeting. So kind of, yeah, the next step is reviewing and ranking impacts. So for each extreme heat impact, that can include physical health impact, mental health impacts, respiratory impacts. You can view important community assets that you ranked that are associated with that indicator, as well as data that measures the direct, data on direct impact measures, as well as, I think if there might be a transition on this slide as well, if you want to click, you'll be able to see, these impact modifiers, which are data on community conditions that impact your community sensitivity or adaptability to extreme heat. And so the idea is that you look at the threatened community assets, you looked at the data on the direct impact, and then at these impact modifiers that affect your community sensitivity. And based on all those, you'll be able to rank or the overall level of this impact on your community. And the next step, so the kind of culminating step is this community profile, and actually, is this community profile, which summarizes all of the extreme heat, secondary exposure, and impact data that you looked at before, and it shows the risk level selections for all of them. At the end of the community profile is what you see here. And it's these list of adaptation strategies that you can consider based on all your risk rankings. It'll actually suggest various adaptation strategies that you can consider to increase your resilience to future extreme heat impacts. And then next step, I actually don't think the picture updated, but that's okay. The final step is this kind of report feature, which really provides a starting point for an extreme heat vulnerability assessment that your tribe can customize and modify. And so the report summarizes common background information on extreme heat. It outlines and summarizes ecological, human, and cultural impacts of extreme heat on your tribe, including general background info on the impact and data that's automatically imported from the EASY tool. And as well as placeholder text that you can use to include your own tribe's observational data or other tribe-specific data. And also summarizes data in infographics and tables and things like that. All right, next slide. So yeah, like I mentioned before, thanks for listening to me yap, and we'll be doing an in-depth training on the Easy for Extreme Heat tool at the next TECC-X meeting on May 26th. So please join us for that, and happy to answer any questions during the Q&A.
Thank you, Colleen. And I think we're not going to have time for Q&A because we had just so much information and wisdom and things to share. So here is a few of our opportunities and resources for extreme heat planning. And this whole presentation and the slides and everything will be sent out to all the participants within the next day or so. And so you know who the people are to reach out to if you have questions. And there is one question from Peter in the chat that asks about the Easy Tools output. Let's see, directly relate to LCIC, EC, or other California state grant criteria. Well, I would say yes. Could you use this as supporting evidence for a funding application? Yes, because a lot of the underlying data sources are the same ones that you would use to show eligibility for funding. So things like the California extreme, what is it?
It has data from the California heat assessment tool that Tina mentioned earlier. It has data from the Extreme Heat Edition, the Healthy Places Index Extreme Heat Edition, as well
the
as
Healthy Places Index.
Yeah, as well as data from CalAdapt.
Yeah.
So it has all the data that you would use for a funding application. So yeah. And then just to answer the next question on the Easy tool launch, it's not publicly available yet, but we will be releasing a link to the tool and how to access it at the next month's TECC-X meeting. So stay tuned.
And for Donna's question, yes, because this is based on census tracts, it includes all of the land in California. So, all right, we're going to be shuffled out of our breakout room in about 55 seconds. I'm sorry we didn't have time for questions, but get back to us whenever you want, and we will do our best to answer your questions. And here's Josh back with us, but I think we might still have some people lurking in their breakout rooms who are waiting for waiting to be kicked out manually.
All right.
Okay.
We might.
Welcome back. Shasta, you want to report out on Tribal Climate Health Project?
Sure. So in the, I'm going to call this the hot room this time because we were talking about extreme heat. So while the hotties were over there learning about resources and tools and funding opportunities for extreme heat, we had great speakers with great information to share. And unfortunately, we ran out of time for questions. So if folks do have questions, you know how to reach us. We have these slides coming out with our contact information, and everything will be coming to you within the next day or two. So you can feel free to reach out to us if there are questions you wanted to ask and didn't get an opportunity. But I think that we have a lot of interest, I hope, in next month's TECC-X, which is going to be entirely dedicated to demonstrating our new Easy for Extreme Heat online tool, which Colleen was able to use, or was able to give us a sneak preview for. So what about you? How was Dough Brick?
So it was overly ambitious to try to cover 2 funding opportunities in one session. So we covered a fair bit of the DOE one. FEMA one was more so limited, but they also have their paywall set up where you can't get in and see the actual application documents. So Melissa provided that caveat. I did not get to the final slide of first, kind of what you should do right away when you're starting on your grant application. So check out those slides. Feel free to ask questions, reach out, and then next time for TECC-X, we're going to focus on tribal transmission planning and considerations. And we're kind of partnering with CPUC where they can have a follow-on event. So look out for the announcement of that for the May TECC-X series. But We have 2 minutes. If people want to put in some a question or two, we could try to answer one.
Thank you, Donna, for reminding us about the California Tribal GIS Summit. I will be there. Oh, and I see that your hand is up, Donna. Go ahead.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Hey, the other week or so, there's a gentleman, Maurice, from the Cal EPA. He's the new tribal liaison, I guess, for the agency. He contacted me and said that he's kind of the lead on the plastics fund there. I put his contact information in there for the tribes, so feel free to connect with him. And I think there's some big money there, so I just want to share with that. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing everybody at the California Tribal GIS Summit. Yay!
Thanks, Donna.
All right, thank you.
And then we had a question from Gail on what is DOE looking for in usage of AI. I guess they're trying to make sure you did your homework on your own and you didn't cheat. I suppose. I think that, but they're just asking for you to say how much and what did you use AI to complete this proposal? And I don't know, maybe they're looking to screen ones out that they feel like were not done well. So this is a new era. Shoni, what are the no words you've come across to not include in DOE grant apps?
Climate change.
Well, yeah, climate, really any federal application right now.
Yeah.
I mean, the big one to me on the deployment side of things is just really being far enough along. So not saying like preliminary design engineering. I don't think community itself is a flag. It's specific to tribes, but yeah, when you're talking about your engineering design documents on the deployment side, don't say they're preliminary. Just say they're your, these are our engineering design documents. I wouldn't even specify what level they are. Just say that they are your design engineering documents, regardless of whether they're at 30, 60, or 90%.
All right, I think that takes us out. And again, appreciate you all. Sorry, there's never enough time to go over all this great information, but we always have next month, and I hope to see you there.
All right, thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.